Hey, thanks for reading the Bible with me. We are working our way through the book of Luke, just reading a short passage directly from the Bible and then just talking about it quickly. My hope is that people will just actually read the Bible. A lot of people think they know what's in it, have already made judgment calls about it, but how many people have actually read it? So I'm encouraging people to read it for themselves. And hopefully by having someone yapping at you about it, it'll kind of make you want to have a look. So we are reading Luke chapter 20, verses 27 to 40, and I'm going to read it to you in the New Living Translation just because it's a nice, easy read. Then Jesus was approached by some Sadducees, religious leaders who say there's no resurrection from the dead. They posed this question: "Teacher, Moses gave us a law that if a man dies leaving a wife but no children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers. The oldest one married and then died without children. So the second brother married the widow, but he also died. Then the third brother married her. This continued with all 7 of them who died without children. Finally, the woman also died. So tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? For all 7 were married to her." Jesus replied, "Marriage is for people on earth. But in the age to come, those worthy of being raised from the dead will neither marry nor be given in marriage, and they will never die again. In this respect, they'll be like angels. They're children of God and children of the resurrection. But now, as to whether the dead will be raised, even Moses proved this when he wrote about the burning bush. Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, he referred to the Lord as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So he's the God of the living, not the dead, for they are all alive to him." "Well said, teacher," remarked some of the teachers of religious law who were standing there. And then no one dared ask him any more questions. So the last question that they asked backfired. So I guess they decided, now maybe rather than fighting him, we'll try and get him on our side. They couldn't win an argument against him, so why not use him in a little inner argument? Now, for background, remember how we said the Jewish leaders were able to exercise some authority over the region as long as they didn't get out of line with Rome? Their jurisdiction was primarily over religious affairs. The religious sub-government was called the Sanhedrin. All the way back then, there were different political parties who bickered just as much as they do now. The Sadducees and Pharisees were 2 different religious political parties, both of whom held seats on the Sanhedrin. The Pharisees tended to more strictly adhere to the scriptures, while the Sadducees were more interested in going along to get along with the neighboring peoples, and especially with Rome. So, for whatever reason, it seemed like a good opportunity for them to pick an internal fight. The Sadducees concoct this absurd thought experiment that's meant to create a problem for those who believe in a resurrection from the dead. It seems the conclusion they hoped Jesus would affirm was that since a woman presumably couldn't possibly be simultaneously married to 7 men in the afterlife, there must be no afterlife. Now, as a woman with a meager bachelor's degree in philosophy, I've heard some weak arguments in my day, and this has got to be in the top 10. To be fair, there was a religious law as it is described here. It seems to have served 2 purposes. One, in a culture where one's heritage was intrinsic to identity and where a person's family name included property and reputation, it ensured that no Israelite's family name would die with him. My modern Western sensibilities don't immediately resonate with the thought that this would be tragic, but then I wonder if maybe it means more to me than I think it does. For instance, my only brother has Down syndrome, and as such is unlikely to have kids. So we gave our eldest son my dad's last name as a middle name. It just felt important to keep it in the family. The law also served to protect widows in that culture. As a woman, if your husband died and you had no son, you were often forgotten by society. It was extremely unusual for a woman to be able to have property of her own, and widows, especially those without a son to represent them, often suffered on the fringes of the community. This law provided a way both to ensure that the deceased man continued to have a name among his people and to protect his widow. So maybe it's not quite as icky as it might immediately seem, but it is a bizarre little scenario that takes things to the next level here. 7 brothers in a row all die after marrying the same woman. I feel like there's a common denominator here. Just saying. Be that as it may, Jesus first responds to their stupid question, and then goes on to destroy the belief their question was aimed at proving. He knows it's a ludicrous question, but still, it's an opportunity to explain more truth, so he takes it. The marriage relationship is something God gave us here on earth. It's just not a thing in heaven. Marriage was a gift God gave the first man, Adam, because he looked at him and saw it wasn't good for him to be alone. In heaven, there won't be a need for that type of relationship. What will there be? I don't know. There's this great verse, 1 Corinthians 2, verse 9, that claims that no one has seen, heard, or even imagined the things God has planned for those who love him. Now, that probably isn't only referring to heaven, but it certainly includes it. Prophetic descriptions of heaven picture a harmonious interrelation of all living creatures. Whatever it was that God saw Adam was missing, no one will be missing in heaven. So Jesus gives an intelligent answer to a stupid question, but he doesn't stop there. Jesus isn't remotely okay with someone doubting that there is a resurrection. Recall, we are at the start of the week in which he would be killed. His whole mission on earth would have been an embarrassing waste of time if there was no resurrection. The Sadducees, leaders of the people Jesus loved and chose to live among, were teaching that death wins. There's nothing after. This life is all there is. To this, Jesus responds, "You could not be more wrong." Then he proves it using a well-known historical account from their scriptures. Moses would have lived about 400 years after Jacob, whose father was Isaac, whose father was Abraham, died. Jesus points out that when God speaks to Moses to call him to rescue his people living in slavery in Egypt, he calls himself the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jesus explains that was a present tense statement. I am their God, right now. By inference, God said Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were alive more than 400 years after they died. As a philosophical argument, this is a good one. It's sound deductive, and to be precise, that means that if the premises are true, the conclusion has to be, and these premises are true. So, enough with the poorly constructed thought experiments. I love the last verse where it says, some of the teachers of the law said, "Well done." I'll tell you right now who those teachers of the law were. They were the Pharisees who just watched the Sadducees get wrecked. See you next time.